A very good evening. Thanks for tuning in to Times Now. I'm Kritsween Walia. We quickly start with the latest we're tracking, and this is a big update coming in this evening, viewers, with regards to the Agni 5 missile. And yes, we take you through the key features, but the biggest one so far is that less than a week after the Tawang clash with Chinese soldiers on the line of actual control, now India, after having carried a successful night trial of the nuclear-capable Agni 5 ballistic missile, which can hit targets beyond 5,000 kilometers, source-based information now coming in that range could exceed to up to 7,000 kilometers. So this remained an open figure up until now, but source-based information suggesting that we're looking at a range of about 7,000 kilometers now, which means that the extended range of missile, which is part of the Strategic Forces Command, will give a variety of options to the planners during the time of conflict. Let me, without wasting any time, go across to our guest joining us this evening, Dr. W. Selvamurthy, Chancellor, Amity University, with us on this broadcast, along with Dr. Swasti Rao, who's also Associate Fellow, MP IDSA. Dr. Selvamurthy, I want to first begin by understanding the key features of Agni 5. We've been speaking about it the last couple of days. It's become all the more important given the timing of the test fire. You know, it happened just a couple of days after the Tawang clashes that were witnessed in the northeast border areas. Now, given the sensitivity of the timing, given China's aggression and how it's being spoken of, the fact that the range is now, safe to say, possibly extended to 7,000. We were talking about 5,000, 5,500. Hearing that it could be about 7,000, what does this mean for India?
Well,
I want to tell the viewers,
first, you know what
today,
we have to understand.
Dr. Swasti, I'll come to you next.
Missile technology.
Yes, sir.
And we have the Agni 5 ranging, starting from Agni 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. The capability has been built over the years. Because in a missile, you need to have the range, the payload capability, and how much payload you can deliver with what accuracy. These are the very important features. So today, India has achieved that capability through materials, propulsion, control, guidance, navigation, payload integration, payload separation. Tremendous technological input goes in. Then computing the trajectory and giving the signature of the target. So all this capability with all the technology control regimes like NPT, CTBT, and we have been able to develop. So India should be very proud that we have a tremendous strength over a period has been developed in missile. So this Agni 5 is strategic missile. That means it can carry nuclear warhead. And this can carry up to 1.5 ton nuclear warhead. India is a nuclear power today, and we have declared a self-moratorium of no first use. So if so, we must have the credible second strike capability from land, air, water, underwater. This is what has been built in the Strategic Force Command by the DRDO, Defense Research and Development Organization. And now today we have positioned these in different locations, in strategic locations.
Okay.
So to have whatever is the target, whether on the east or west, whichever target, it can cover a range of more than 5,000 kilometers. But in fact, once you
you're telling us that it can be launched from road, from rail platforms, and that indeed in itself means that it can be deployed quickly, it can be launched at a quicker pace, and that in itself is a big boost. Dr. Swasti, now this is not a conventional weapon, it's a nuclear delivery system. It's meant as part of our strategic deterrence. It's capable of carrying payload to any of the locations if necessary. If you could just put that in perspective for us.
Yeah, absolutely. See, one has to understand that ICBMs are basically ballistic missiles, right? And they have a long range. And I think the panelist earlier was also explaining the same, that basically these are long range, you know, intercontinental. So they're capable of traveling between continents. Now, the point is that especially in the case of our problem with China, this is more as a strategic posturing because, you know, China is our neighbor with whom we share a border. So we don't really need a, you know, so I mean, it's like an ICBM for, it's more for deterrence than for actual use because we don't really need somebody who's just, you know, across the border. That's one. The second thing is that the modern ICBMs are basically designed for nuclear weapons delivery, but they can also carry a whole host of other kinds of weapons, chemical weapons. I mean, you name them. They are basically carriers, right? And India, it is more to do with posturing. The other thing that you asked me about how they can be launched, etc. See, the thing is that ICBMs can be launched from multiple platforms. Basically, two kinds of platforms. One is a fixed launch site, which is like a missile silo. For example, if you've been noticing that Russia very recently, 2 days ago, a video surfaced where Russia is carrying a Yars class ICBM, to be carried to a silo. Okay, so which is again a kind of a posturing to kind of give a warning to the West that you better not send your Patriot missile systems to air defense systems to Ukraine, because we are also ready for retaliation. But anyway, so that is a fixed launch site, and the other is a mobile launcher that the gentleman before me was talking about, which can be launched from submarines, from heavy trucks or rails, and they are more difficult to detect also, especially because they're moving all the time. Okay, and they give you greater mobility, but they become more vulnerable if they are caught in the open, because they are not being launched from a silo. Okay.
Okay, so that's great.
This is what the logic is like. But also remember, let me tell you before I finish, let's remember we are talking about ballistic missiles. Ballistic missiles have a particular way to travel. They travel in a particular trajectory, while cruise missiles are relatively more difficult to detect because they travel at low altitudes and very close to the surface of the earth. So let's remember that no matter how long the range, the ballistic missiles are still more susceptible to being intercepted by potent air defense systems, right? They are potent, but that is what the length and breadth of a ballistic missile program looks like. So in the end, one must remember that these are weapons that are used for strategic posturing, and the most important point is that India, given the kind of geopolitics that we are witnessing right now, India must rethink its no first use policy. Okay, so this is a particular thought that I'll probably
but India is stuck to its no first use policy, and that's exactly where we launched this conversation with Dr. Selvamurthy. As the launch of Agni 5 has marked a significant boost to India's strategic deterrence, people are also, can I say safely, looking forward to its submarine version, the K5, which is also expected to be tested in the near future. A lot of buzz also around the Agni 6 because they're saying the range could go up to 8,000.
See, once you go to space, increasing the range becomes easy because it is no gravity over there. It's a rarefied atmosphere. So you can easily traverse, you put additional motor, solid motor, or the propulsion system, you put one more stage or two more stage, you can reach even 10,000 kilometers. So this technology, which we have now said more than 5,000, is that practically in reality, we can reach 7,000, 8,000 easily by adding another stage of propulsion. So we have developed this capability today. So as was mentioned, it is a deterrent. See, India has always had a policy that we won't attack. And in the whole history of India, we have never attacked any country or showed aggressive posture. And we don't have any other except self-defense. But then, as she was mentioning rightly, that in the changing scenario, so should we rethink about this policy of no strike? That is a government take on that because it's a global politics. And then we need to look at, because India now G20 presidentship has been given. So we have much more responsibility to look at a global player taking care of the world. But I'm sure this will send a strong message to our neighbors that we have the capability. So strength respects strength. So that is why we call it as a credible deterrence. Agni 5, in fact, it is an intercontinental ballistic missile which can carry a payload of 1.5 ton of nuclear warheads. And we have a number of them. And we have already inducted this into the Strategic Force Command. It's not a technology demonstrator or a system which to be proven. It is already inducted. And in fact, Strategic Force Command has tried order. And then you fire it. And the reaction time from the adversary will be very, very minimal. So we can give that surprise because this Agni 5 can also
so there's
be
an element of surprise as well. But, the larger question also, because so much is being spoken of with regards to India-China relationship, how India in, the sense that is trying to create this image of its own, the posturing angle aspect that is being spoken of, India roaring back at China for every aggressive move that it's making. Dr. Swasti, in that context, if you could just quickly tell us where Agni 5 stands in comparison to, let's say, China's DF-17.
Like I said, it is about strategic posturing. Both India and China know that they probably would not, be driven to a point where they would be actually using these, weapons. Like I again said that, why would you need to deploy a weapon which travels between continents when you actually share a border? So think about it logically. So the purpose of these things is to actually give you a stuffed strategic posturing. And I think what has been happening in India ever since the Galwan clash, after 2020, is that India's always made it very clear to the Chinese that it cannot be business as usual. So business as usual in the sense that I'm not talking about the trade figures. The trade figures are there because China has manufacturing advantage. Okay, so I'm not talking about that. Don't take it, absolutely literally. But what I'm trying to say is that India's responses, India's intelligence, India's development and working on its capabilities, right? That is something that India can probably no longer, so to say, ignore, because like I said, that it is we have to be very, very clear about where we stand on and what our stand is with respect to overcoming China's aggression. So we've given a very, very clear message across to China. And also let me just tell you that I think here in India we have this this tendency to constantly think of the LAC standoff, etc., as being China's most important existential problem. I think China is much more concentrated on Taiwan, and what one can really understand, what one can really infer is that Chinese behavior towards Taiwan is perhaps something that is far more important to them. So the Taiwan question is far more important. But
and some would say, Dr. Swasti, that it's China that's over-concentrated with regards to the LAC issue, and that's why they're trying to keep the pot boiling. But I want to quickly take in a word from Dr. Selvamurthy as well. Dr. Selvamurthy, now we've been talking about the capabilities of Agni 5, and before we wrap this up, I want to understand the idea and the concept behind retesting it this time around, because, it started developing somewhere around 1980s, if I'm not wrong. And in 2021 also we saw a similar test take place. Now, is it more specific technological updates with regards to these missiles that are put to test every time there's a new test carried out?
Yes. See, the evolution of missile technology has been, as you rightly said, Integrated Guided Missile Development Program, IGM-DP, when Dr. APJ Abdul Kalam was the scientific advisor to Raksha Mantri. Before that, Director of Defense Research and Development Lab. It was a very major program sanctioned when Dr. V.S. Arunachalam was the scientific advisor to Raksha Mantri. And this IGM-DP covered Agni, Prithvi, Akash, Nag, Trishul. 5 missiles were to be developed. And then Agni was the long-range missile out of all this. And we were looking at 5,000 kilometers at that time itself. But then you can't reach that immediately. So we went into 700 kilometers, and then we went to 2,000, 3,000, and like that. Now we have more than 5,000 kilometers. And the time which we are testing now is actually to send to not only China, but also to our adversaries, the capability. So China is one of the important, the country to whom we would like to also tell them that we have enough capability to
and much of it is indeed about flexing muscles, and we've seen that when it comes to India, China, Pakistan, any of the countries involved. Stay on with us, both of you. I have a quick update since we're talking about India-China relationship and the geopolitical equation there. There's another update coming in on Pakistan's minister, one of the ministers who's now threatened India, saying our nuclear status is not to remain silent. This is Shazia Mari while holding a press conference in support of Bilawal Bhutto, the Pakistani foreign minister. Remember, he's been facing a lot of criticism here in India with regards to the comment he made against Prime Minister Narendra Modi. In support of him has come out Pakistan's minister Shazia Mari, who's threatened India, saying our nuclear status is not to remain silent.
का मौजू है, जो एजेंडा आइटम है, वो फिर शर्म अल शेख में क्लाइमेट चेंज की जो COP27 है उसमें डिस्कस हुआ. तो ये हमारे वजीर ख़ारजा की अनथक मेहनत और कमिटमेंट का नतीजा है कि आज लॉस एंड डैमेज के हवाले से दुनिया तस्लीम करती है कि पाकिस्तान ने बहुत नुकसान उठाया है। क्लाइमेट चेंज के नुकसानात पाकिस्तान पर बहुत संगीन शक्ल इख्तियार कर गए हैं, जिसके लिए इस जो रियलिटी है उसको दुनिया के डेवलपिंग नेशंस की मदद करते हुए जो डेवलप्ड नेशंस हैं उनको भी अपना कंट्रीब्यूशन देना होगा। और इसके लिए आप जानते हैं कि जो ही हमारे पास गैर मामूली फ्लड्स आए तो बिलावल साहब ने कमर कस ली। उन्होंने पाकिस्तान के अंदर UN सेक्रेटरी जनरल को बुलाने में जो कामयाबी हासिल की, और फिर वज़ीर आज़म पाकिस्तान ने जिस तरीक़े से इस पूरे उनके दौरे को फॉरेन मिनिस्टर के साथ मिलकर अरेंज किया, ऑर्गेनाइज़ किया, वो आपके सामने है। मुख्तसर वक्त के अंदर यूनाइटेड नेशंस की तवज्जो पाकिस्तान के एक बड़े संगीन मसले के ऊपर लाना, ये इस हुकूमत की एक कमिटमेंट और उनके जो एक पैशन है लोगों को सर्व करने का, उसका नतीजा है। अब भी जो वहाँ पर कॉन्फ्रेंस हो रही है उसके अंदर भी बिलावल भुट्टो साहब पाकिस्तान का ही मुकदमा रख रहे हैं। क्लाइमेट चेंज का जो लॉस एंड डैमेज जो कामयाबी से हमने दुनिया को बताया कि ये ज़रूरी फ़ंड है और ये ज़रूरत है ना सिर्फ पाकिस्तान की बल्कि हर उस मुल्क की जो क्लाइमेट चेंज का शिकार होगा लेकिन उतना मजबूत नहीं होगा कि वो।
If I could quickly bring in Dr. Swasti, because, you know, we were talking about the extended range of the Agni-5 missile, and here comes a comment from one of the Pakistani ministers, and like, you know, we just concluded by wrapping up that discussion talking about muscle flexing. The Pakistanis are now resorting to nuclear muscle flexing, and in that sense, Dr. Swasti, how important is it? Though we do blindly follow the no first use policy, but here is an example set by India, and that's exactly what needs to be sent across as a message as well.
True. See, one of the arguments behind dropping the no first use policy is the fact that Pakistan, which is a terrorist state and right next to us and has been making our lives difficult from 1947 onwards, does not have any such policy. Okay. And the current geopolitics, I mean, if you look at what has happened in East Europe, for instance, I mean, the way the continent of Europe has been reeling under all this looming threat of nuclear war, etc. And all I'm trying to say is that India needs to rethink its policy, not because India is going to use it, but the fact is that these are the core components of a strategic posturing. That is one. The second thing is about the reality of what Pakistan's statement is. I think that is something we should not be taking very seriously. They are known to make statements which actually are not really, well thought of, well contemplated. I mean, just to think that, Mr. Bhutto actually went there. Mr. Zardari, right? He actually, Bilawal Bhutto, he actually went there and he said something like that. Which
a big boost for the entire country. And in that sense, we're tracking that very closely, watching out for that very, very closely. Thank you both, Dr. Selva Murthy and Dr. Swasti Rao, for joining us this evening. We shift our